Okay. So the February 1st is the new deadline for when tariffs could be introduced. We spent the whole day, the whole inauguration day, Canada's name was kept out of his mouth. I wanted to say the
smack.
Keep your name out of my mouth. Out of your mouth.
My country's name.
So that happened, right? But then he doubled down later. I think it was in the evening, or I don't think it was the next day, but like at the end of the day said, oh, well, maybe February 1st. This is after he had said that we're going to study the trade relationships. And I assume that doesn't happen in less than 2 weeks. Like we're, 10 days away from February 1st at this point. Like that's a lot of studying to happen in order to do that. It felt a little bit off the cuff, and it felt like, I'm going to get you next time. It felt like a bully threatening after he's maybe thought it through a little bit. Wants to fight the little guy.
Advisors, but we have more information now. I don't know if you saw the email or newsletter from Dr. Sherry Cooper, our chief economist here at Dominion Lending Centers, and other newspaper articles as well, talking about a memo that must have been released to journalists with Trump's top advisors saying this is not going to work as a blanket 25% tariff, specifically citing the energy that Canada produces and sends down there, that they purchase, and also with our automobile manufacturing, essentially saying Americans won't be able to afford cars if we slap this tariff on Canada and Mexico, and they won't be able to afford energy if we do that. U.S. is our biggest purchaser of oil and gas from Canada. So the speculation is those two would have to be exempt, and then the rest of it kind of gets blurry. Seemed like, was it Rob McClister? Do I have his name right? Saying that putting a 25% tariff on Canada is like buying a $20 coupon for a $10 savings. It's like, so I think that when you're saying that, that it was maybe like, I'll get you next time, sort of throw it in at the end. That sounds pretty accurate to me. That I think he's rolling back on that, but trying to still sound like a tough guy.
That's how, and I think that's how the markets react. We certainly didn't get our bond yields, which our interest rates are based on, those came down quite significantly. Like we had this big bump as we were heading into the presidency, and then they've come back down to earth a little bit, and they didn't go right back up. People are not buying this. It felt like an empty threat to me. And I mean, if he wants to go, like, let's go. Like, and I think we're up for the fight. And I think we don't have to hit hard. It's like, you want to mess with the hornet's nest. Sure. They're little, tiny little bees. Right. But we're,
but 100 of them doesn't feel so good. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to hit you specifically. Sounds like the retaliatory tariffs would be on swing states, would be on Republican strongholds. So like hitting kind of those states the hardest. Yeah. And so that the whole idea is that, like, yes, we don't have the massive economy, but you want to mess with us, then we'll mess with you back. Like, I think we're more than willing. We're not just going to roll over. This is not a possum type of situation. This is, you want to mess with a moose, let's use a Canadian reference. You're going to get stuck with the antlers. You want to leave us alone? Well, I'll be fine. I don't believe him. I think that he's saying a whole bunch of stuff to get a reaction. He's throwing it out there to see what's popular. Would tariffs on Canada be popular? Absolutely not. And that's just why it won't happen. He'll find a reason not to do it.
Sure. And he won't get support. This is sort of him standing on his own saying this. He's not going to get a ton of support from America to I'm going to jack up the cost of living for you by doing this tariff. I think he, maybe has his facts really not straight here at all. So
no, makes up numbers like we do on our podcast.
Oh my goodness, do we ever? We just don't threaten.
No, I mean, he threw out like a 200 billions, he's subsidizing us 200 billion. That's just not the case.
No.
And so, well, what does this mean for our mortgage rates? What does this mean if the tariffs come in place? We could expect our bond yields, which our fixed rates are based on, they would probably go up, at least momentarily. And so fixed rates would cost more money. What would happen with the Bank of Canada's policy rate? I think it does the opposite. I think we see them having to pull back on the policy rate. Let's support Canadians by making it less expensive to borrow money.
The employment numbers would be projected to take a hit if the U.S. is not purchasing from us at the way that they typically do. That could lead to layoffs and other problems, or at least hiring freezes. So that would not be great. Sure, we get lower interest rates, but we want a strong labor market above all.
Yeah, I think if we have, so if we're affected by that, as we were saying earlier, the benchmark policy rate is affected by inflation and the job market. The fixed rates, the bond yields, that's more of a global metric. How is Canada doing on the worldwide stage? Are people investing in Canada?
Correct.
Is it more expensive to that? Is it safe to invest in Canadian? So if there's tariffs, Canada becomes a less attractive economy to invest in.
Yeah.
And our cost, do people want to invest here? No. Boom, boom, boom. Higher mortgage, higher fixed
purchase price of the bond yield and higher. Yeah. Sorry, cheaper purchase of the bond, higher yield. More investment in Canada, lower the bond yield. So let's get that going.
Yeah.
Can we find another trade partner to replace the U.S.? Like, not likely. So we're gonna have to make this work.
Not in 2025 or 20. Can we? There'd be no way to. The world would have to change dramatically for our oil not to be the most valuable thing that we export to Canada, to the US and the rest of the world. And we would, yes, we can build pipelines to other places in the world, but that's a decade in the future. Yeah. We'll have many different prime ministers and presidents by then.
So Feb 1st, what do you think that there'll be a move on Feb 1st? Do you think there'll be an announcement of any tariff? Because this was also, when Trump announced the tariffs, it was contingent upon border security and fentanyl and illegal immigration.
He's doubling down on that too. That's the reason.
Which is like,
it's not about trade.
Right. Which is, it's essentially like immeasurable in a way. I don't know how you measure illegal immigration and illegal fentanyl. How do you measure illegal stuff with any sort of real accuracy? I don't know. So
he says all this stuff for a reaction, right? So he's got it. We're talking about this on a small podcast in Canada about mortgages. We're talking about Trump for 50% of it or more. And so he's getting everything he wants from that. But he says things like this, like he says things for a reaction. He many times has said, we're having our health plan rolled out in the next few weeks. That he said in his first administration, it never happened. He said it a variety. Here's our plan. It's coming. He says many things, but for them to launch tariffs February 1st, so much work has to be done on their side in order to make it happen. I just don't think it's a big enough priority. It's a big enough popular thing for him to do in his first 100 days. Maybe I'm wrong. I just don't see it. If it happens, it doesn't happen February 1st, and it doesn't last long because we're going to make it very painful.